Hello and welcome to our show. My name is Hadley and I will be having 3 guests on the show tonight, all from the Great Depression era. Yes, we even got Al Capone to come out for an interview, as well as Herbert Hoover and the one and only Franklin Delano Roosevelt. So, without further ado, Herbert Hoover, come on out. Hey Herbert, thanks for coming out to the show. We all really appreciate it. If you don't mind, I'd like to ask you a couple questions about your presidency during the Great Depression.
Go for it.
So, economy was booming when you were elected as president. How do you explain what happened to our economy as the Great Depression hit? Do you feel responsible?
Well, the economy was great in the first 7 months of my presidency. Then in October, on Black Tuesday, things took a turn for the worst. The stock market crashed and U.S. Americans lost $30 million by November. The stock market crash was like a slap in the face for America, and I told us to wake up. I do not feel fully responsible for the Great Depression because I think Americans are mainly at fault.
Okay. Can you explain to us what Hoovervilles were? You must have been pretty famous back then to have a village named after you.
Well, Hoovervilles weren't exactly the best thing ever. I'm ashamed they called them Hoovervilles after my own name. Hoovervilles where people were forced to wait in bread lines for food and live in squalid shantytowns.
Okay, so why did you believe in a limited government? You held us Americans responsible. Did this really help us during the Great Depression?
I believe that excessive federal intervention posed a threat to capitalism and individualism. Assistance should be handled on a local, voluntary basis. I vetoed several bills that would have provided direct relief to struggling Americans, but it didn't really help at all.
So how does it feel to not be reelected during the Great Depression?
Honestly, it was time for a new president. I was pretty much the worst.
All right, those are all the questions I have. Thanks so much again, Herbert. Everyone give a big round of applause for the 31st president. Next up, we have Al Capone, probably one of America's most famous gangsters out there. Al Capone, come on out. Hey Al Capone, thanks so much for being here. I think the audience was pretty excited to hear your interview. If you don't mind, I'd like to ask you a few questions about your life as America's most famous gangster.
Awesome.
Being a gangster and all, you probably carried a lot of money. How did you not get caught using all that money?
See, the trick is to pay in cash. Then no one can track your card or anything. I'm pretty smart like that.
So, the Valentine's Day Massacre, why?
Well, wasn't too happy about my longtime rival Bugs Moran being in the profitable bootlegging business. He tried to kill me once, but obviously failed. After he decided to go after my top hitman, Machine Gun, Jack McGunn, we both decided to kill Moran. When we began to try to kill him, we only killed 7 of his gunmen. Moran fled, and I was blamed for this. I was public enemy number 1.
Okay, so eventually you made your way to prison. Explain to us what that was like.
They finally caught me with 22 counts of income tax evasion. Really thought I would get out this one with bribery and intimidation. Unfortunately, I was found guilty and was sent to prison for 11 years.
Alright, well thanks Al Capone for coming out. We would love to have you again. Last, but certainly not least, we have a very special guest, Franklin Roosevelt. Everybody give him a warm welcome. Okay, last one for tonight. Thanks so much for coming out to be on the show. I'm going to be asking you a few questions on your role during the Great Depression. So, you became president after Herbert Hoover during the Great Depression. Explain to us what that was like.
Well, in my first 100 days, I closed all the banks until Congress could pass the reform legislation. I thought this would help our nation's economy get back on its feet.
Also, during the Great Depression, you gave radio talks. Tell us how those went.
Ah, yes. Well, I started to hold open press conferences, and I gave regular national radio addresses, which I spoke directly to the American people. They were called my fireside chats, where we talked about the banking crisis. Families would literally be able to sit right next to their fireplaces and listen to me talk. These fireside chats gave people hope, and I gained the trust of the American people. And soon, this helped our economy get much better.
All right, thank you so much, Franklin. Well, that's the end of our show, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all for being here, and I hope you enjoyed our interviews with some of the most famous people in United States history during the Great Depression.